أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع المذنبين وخاتم النبيين نبينا وشفينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاحدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وهو أصدق الصادقين وقوله الحق أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Respected scholars, elders of the community, my brothers and sisters in Islam, Salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. The reality of this dunya is such that we are in a constant battle against this dunya. The manifestation of this dunya actually comes to us in hardships, and it comes to us in calamities, and it comes to us in struggles. I can bet you that there is nobody in this room, there is no person in this room who has not come across any hardship or any struggle in his life, or has not come across any kind of adversity in his life. And one of the purposes, of course, of this adversity is to test us. And this is articulated in the ayah that I recited, which is a very famous ayah that we all recite on the night of Laylatul Qadr, for it is from Suratul Ankabut. And after, in the second ayah of Suratul Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Again, Allah is asking a rhetorical question. And in this, Allah is saying that do people think that they will be left alone? Do people think that they will not be tested because they say we believe? Because we are believers, that Allah will not test them? So this is an ayah that after believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after having iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says that I will test you to see whom from you has the best quality of deeds. Ahsan is the word that Allah uses in other parts of the Quran. Not that who has good deeds, but who has the best quality of deeds. And that is why I will test you. We need to use adversity to elevate ourselves. That is the message. You see, you cannot think, you think to yourself, so why does Allah test me? Like, does He get pleasure out of testing me? And what's the point, right? Why does He have to test me with hardships and struggles? Life would be quite good if I didn't have any hardship and struggles. Why does He have to do that? The reason He does that is through those hardships and struggle, the believer is able to grow. The believer is able to develop himself. That's why Allah tests you. Of course, there is a deep philosophy around why Allah tests you. You know, the first reason sometimes is that He creates an awareness on, on that human being. He wants to make that human being aware of something. Perhaps because we are doing something evil. Perhaps we are not in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is like an awareness, it's like a warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you get into a hardship or an adversity, then it is that time for us to reflect and think. Is it something that I'm doing that I should not be doing? And maybe this Allah is trying to remind me of it. Thinking of it, in that sense, that have I got some moral deficiencies that Allah is trying to remind me of, and that's why I have that hardship? The second reason is that, of course, many times we become heedless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? We go into the state of ghafla, right? We become heedless of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes, of course, we only remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we have an adversity. When we have nice blessings, when Allah gives us wealth and health and good family and a good car and a good house, we don't remember Allah at those times. And so what happens is we become heedless of Him. So sometimes the tests for us is such that it reminds us of Allah. How many times do you remember that when you have some kind of a struggle or a calamity or an adversity, that's when the musalla comes out, does it not? That's when you start to say to yourself, perhaps I should recite my salat now on time. Perhaps I should not make it qada. Because now it reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third reason, of course, is that Allah may be testing you. He tests you because He wants to elevate that human being. He wants that human being to grow. Without the struggles, without adversity, there is no way that a human being can grow and achieve higher levels of elevation and spirituality. Ayatollah Ghul-Paghani, once he became sick, and some visitors came to visit him. And as the visitors came to visit him, and they went into his room in the hospital, he was uttering the words of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And of course, the visitors asked him that you are so sick, you're in such a problem, you've got so much adversity, right? And you're struggling so much. Why are you still in this state where you're saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? Is this just a habit of yours? Are you just saying it because you are in the habit of saying Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen? And Ayatollah Ghul-Paghani replied to them and he said, look, this illness of mine is either a warning for me from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me this illness so that He may be able to elevate me and elevate myself to a higher level of spirituality. Or He says that perhaps it is because I have sinned so much and Allah in His mercy wants to give me this illness so that I may be purified in this world, and that when I meet Him, I'm in the state of utmost purification. He says those are the reasons that I can think of as to why I have those illness. And every reason that I think of, I see that the benefit is only for me. And because the benefit is only for me, I am thankful to Allah for it. So the adversity will never leave you. Adversity will never stop. A man approaches Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, and he begins to complain to Imam Ali alayhi salam. He complains about his poverty. He complains about his health. He complains about how much stress he has. He's got this problem and that problem. He comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he's complaining to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the Imam listens to him. And when he's done, Imam says to him, okay, no problem, I will pray for you. I will pray for you. So the man leaves. And then 2 weeks later, or a little time later, a few days later, the man comes back to Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, the problems I told you about 2 weeks ago? And the Imam said, yes, this is alhamdulillah, I'm sure you prayed for me because all those problems are gone. But now I have this problem, and I have this other problem, and I have a problem in my family, and my children are like this, and so he started to list another group of problems. At that time, Imam alayhi salam says to him, look, you are expecting from the dunya what the dunya cannot give you. You are expecting from this dunya what the dunya cannot give you. Instead of asking for a stress-free, a struggle-free life, he says, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that whilst you are going through these difficulties and adversities and struggles, that your iman is protected. Pray for that. He says, because the dunya, the manifestation of this dunya is in hardships and struggles and calamities and adversities. Ask that your iman gets protected. And the reality of adversity in this dunya is that either it can build you to elevate you to a higher level, or that same adversity can bring you down and it can destroy you. How many times have we seen people go through adversity and the first thing that is sacrificed is the deen? Yeah? That's the first thing that is sacrificed, right? And that's what we think, right? The first complaint we have is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the first thing we run towards is the dunya. And this is a major message of Karbala. Who could imagine the struggles and the adversities that the people went through in Karbala? See how that adversity elevates them to a higher level. We need to find God in every ounce of that adversity. It's all about the mindset. Huh? The fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, after the events of Karbala, the fourth Imam, was put in a very difficult position in Medina. He was under house arrest. He was not able to propagate, the religion of his prophet, the religion of his grandfather. He was not able to do anything. He was basically watched all the time by the Banu Umayyah, especially because of what had happened in Karbala. But instead of not doing anything about it, look at how Imam takes that adversity, takes that calamity, and look at how he still has this mission of his that he wants to propagate the religion of Islam, but he takes that adversity and switches it and finds God in it. So what he does is he goes to Masjid-Al-Nabawi and he starts to recite du'as. And through that dua, he starts to propagate the message of Tawheed. He starts to propagate the message of Adalat. He starts to propagate the message of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He starts to propagate the message of the day of judgment. He writes the masterpiece of Dua Makarimul Akhlaq so that there is a framework for morality for the followers. He does that in the context of the adversity that he is going through. And thereby he produces a beautiful book that remains alive even today, which is the Sahifa. Taking the adversity and not letting that adversity and calamity strip us of our iman. Sometimes we get to the point where we say, what's the point in worshiping Allah? What's the point in worshiping God? If Allah is going to take my husband away, if Allah is going to take my mother away, if Allah is going to take my business away, if Allah is going to do all of this, I worshipped Him all these years. I served the community all these years. I did all of these things. Every Thursday, I came and I recited Dua Kumail. Why this struggle on me? Allah didn't find anybody else in this world. He just found me in Orlando. That's it. That's what we do, right? Our iman becomes rattled when we have adversity. Trusting Allah in the issue, in the issue and in the face of adversity, in having that confidence of Allah and connection to Allah, that's the challenge. And that's why Amirul Mu'mineen says in Dua Kumail, Sabartu ala adhabik, fakayfa asbiru ala firaqi. What a statement this man has made. He says, I will take all the adversity that you give me. He says to Allah, I will take all the adversity that you give me, but how will I endure and how will I bear my separation from you? And to that point where he's saying, no matter what that adversity is, I will use that adversity to get close to you. The adversity will not make me lose sight of you. And then he calls out, Ya wali al-mu'mineen, Ya ghayata al-arifin, Ya ghiyath al-mustaghithin. Look at the level of spirituality of this man. See, our vision is narrow. We live in the moment, don't we? We live in the moment. We only see that narrow window that is in front of us. When I was coming to Orlando and I was landing on, into Orlando, that's what it is, right? It's like when you're sitting in the aeroplane. What you see outside of the window is one window and one frame at a time, right? That's all you see. You must be thinking, this guy is weird. Hey, what's he doing on the aeroplane? He should be watching movies, right? But, so you reflect and you see that you are seeing what is outside your window, one window at a time. What you see in window number one is what is there at that particular moment. That's not the vision that Allah has. Allah's vision is vast. He sees the totality of His creation. He sees your whole life from A to Z. He has a bird's eye view of you. He knows your life in its totality. And He knows that unless this person goes through that particular struggle in window number one, he will not achieve that success that he is supposed to achieve in window number 6. His vision is vast. So He says to you, trust me. I know you. I am doing this because I want to elevate you. I want to develop you. It's not because I think, I've got nothing to do, so let me just throw some calamity on my creation. So the question, sometimes comes up is, how do I know, that what I'm going through right now as a test, in adversity, is it a test from Allah or is it a distraction of shaitan? And Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib says that if the adversity brings you close to Allah, then know it is Allah who has favored you. And he is testing you, and he has favored you because he wants to elevate you. And if it pulls you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then no, it is a distraction of shaitan. Now let me give you an example. How do we deal with this? What do I do? What's the mindset going to be? So let's talk about that for a minute. Imagine you have 3 pots of boiling water. Yes? And Alim gave this example and I loved it, and so that's why I'm using it. Let's say you have 3 pots of boiling water. Are you with me? Yes? Jabir bhai, everything's good. Alhamdulillah. 3 pots of boiling water. Yes? In one of those pots, you put a carrot. In another pot, you put an egg. And in the third pot, you put some flakes of coffee. 3 pots of boiling water. In one, you put a carrot. In one, you put an egg. And in the third pot, you put some flakes of coffee. What will happen? That carrot that was hard and strong in that first pot, after it goes into the boiling water for a while, it will become soft and mushy. Yes? That fragile egg that you put in the second pot, it goes in fragile, but it will come out hard and strong as a boiled egg, right? And that coffee flakes that you put in the third pot, it will go in as coffee flakes, but then it will convert and transform that water into a beautiful beverage that will be very nice to drink. The 3 boiling pots are the adversities. We need to choose what we're going to be. Are we going to be the carrot, or are we going to be the egg, or are we going to be the coffee? It's up to us. The least that we should do is that we should not be the carrot. We should not go into that boiling hot water and come out, go in strong, and then transform and come out soft and mushy. The least we need to do is to go and be the egg. At least go in fragile, uncertain, not sure, but the adversity would be able to lift us so that we could be at least strong, right? And we could be strong when we come out, hard and strong when we come out. But the challenge is to be the coffee flakes. The challenge for us is to take that adversity and convert that adversity into something beautiful. That's the challenge. The issue is about your mindset. What is your mindset? How do you approach calamities? There is a very famous Quranic ayat, yes, that we all know about. We talk about it, we recite it all the time, right? فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. The Quran says, right? And it is normally transferred that after hardship, there is relief. And after hardship, there is relief. And the way it is translated is wrong. It's not what this ayat means. It's not the right way to translate it. Because what that tells us is there will be hardship, there will be adversity, and then there will be relief. And then there will be adversity, and then there will be relief. And there will be adversity, and then there will be relief. This is the cycle of life. That's not what this ayah says. The ayah should be interpreted in a way where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you need to find the ease within the adversity. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْأُسْرِ يُسْرًا. There is ease within the adversity. You need to find that ease within the adversity. It's all about the mindset. It's what Karbala teaches us. The companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they find the ease within the adversity. They see God in it. Let's illustrate it with some example, right? Look at the story of Yusuf. It's one of my favorite prophets, right? The story of Yusuf, right? When the women of Egypt tried to seduce him, he resists. He abstains. And since he is disobedient to them, Yusuf is sent into the prison by Zulaykha. Yes? Yusuf is sent to the prison by Zulaykha because he resisted the seductions, right, and the advances of the women of Egypt. As he enters and goes into the prison, see what Yusuf is saying. He's saying, قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أسب إليهن وكن من الجاهلين. He says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, he thanks Allah. He says, this prison that you sent me to, this prison is a prison that is more liking to me. I like it more than being outside and being exposed to the seductions and the advances of the women of Egypt. Why? Because if I am outside, I may be tempted to act on that. But if I am in the prison, then you have safeguarded me. Look at how he takes adversity and converts it to ease. Converts it. He looks for the ease within the adversity. Now take the example of our seventh Imam, Babul Hawaj, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. There is a reason why he's called Babul Hawaj, maybe for another time. Look at this seventh Imam. This seventh Imam, he was put in one jail after another jail. And in fact, the history, if you look at his history, he goes into a jail, and the Caliph of that time once looks at that jail and he sees a piece of cloth inside the jail. And he says to the guy who is in charge of the jail, he says, what is that piece of cloth doing inside of the jail? Where is Musa ibn Ja'far? And the jailer says to the Caliph, he says, look, that piece of cloth is actually Musa ibn Ja'far. He's in prostration, and he's in prostration for hours. Musa ibn Ja'far. They send him to this one jail. And this jail is in the dungeons. It is such a bad jail, the history says, that there is no place for Imam alayhi salam to stand. It was so deep. It was so narrow, right? Narrow from the top and from the sides, that Imam was not able to stand in that jail. No, not only was he not able to stand in that jail, he was not able to even sit in that jail. He had to be in the position of a crawling position to be in that jail. That's where they put the Imam. Look at the hardship he's going through. Yet as he enters this jail, he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, I wanted you to give me the opportunity to worship you in solitude. Alhamdulillah. Today you have given me the opportunity so that I may be able to worship you in the way you deserve to be worshipped. Taking the adversity and looking for the ease within the adversity. I'll give you another example. Another example of Hazrat Yusuf. He's a really cool prophet. You should really listen to, you should read his story. It's really cool, right? Hazrat Yusuf, he becomes, when he became, the king of Egypt, the next in line in Egypt, when he, got to that level where he was the Amir of Egypt, and his brothers found out, right, that this is Yusuf. This is Surah Yusuf. So now what they did was they were asked by Yusuf to bring his father Yaqub to come and see him, to come and meet him. After so many years that Yaqub had cried because of the separation with Yusuf. To the extent the Quran says that he becomes blind, his eyes become white. So many years have passed. The separation between Yusuf and Yaqub is such that Yaqub has become blind because of his crying of Yusuf. After all these years, Yusuf and Yaqub meet in Egypt. Must have been an amazing meeting, don't you think? Two great prophets meeting in Egypt. One who is the Amir of Egypt and the other one who is the father of the Amir. Allahu Akbar. They meet. What a meeting that would have been. And in that meeting, Yaqub asks Yusuf. He says to Yusuf, "Oh Yusuf, tell me, how did your brothers behave with you?" Now I got to tell you, if I had been in that position, after all this time and all this separation, and my father is asking me, "How did your brothers behave with you?" I would have poured it out, man. I would have not left a single thing out. Man, they took me, they kicked me around, they boxed me up, they beat me up, they threw me in the well. It was horrible. That's what I would have done. But look at the answer of Yusuf. And he says to Yaqub, he says, "Oh my father, do not ask me how they behaved with me. Ask me how my Lord favored me." Looking for the ease within the adversity. Looking for the ease within the adversity. And you see this in Karbala. For this is the sacrifice of the great lady we're going to talk about tonight. When this lady, Lady Zainab salamullahi alayha, when she comes into the darbar of Kufa after the events of Karbala, and Ibn Ziyad says to her, "What do you think about what Allah did to your brother?" Allahu Akbar. What do you think about what Allah did to your brother? And the answer of Janab Zainab is, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila." In Karbala, I did not witness anything except beauty. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I did not witness anything except beauty. I have to ask Janab Zainab salamullahi alayha, what version of Karbala do you have? The version that I have talks about, your children being martyred, your brother being martyred, your other brother losing his arms in the river of Furat, the tents being put on fire, the veils being snatched away. What version do you have? The version she has is that version that when you elevate yourself to such a high level, you understand that every reality in this world has a reality in barzakh and also in the hereafter. Every act you commit here today, that act has a reality and a consequence in barzakh and the hereafter. When Janab Zainab says, "Ma ra'aytu illa jamila," she is now able to vision the realms beyond this materialistic world. She is able to witness the sacrifice of Hussein in the world of Barzakh and in the hereafter. And that is why she says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. What are you talking about? All I see is beauty. Adversity, my friends, will not go away. Are you a carrot or an egg or a coffee flake? That's the question. And that's what you have to answer. This is the reality of this dunya, right? Sometimes we look at 10 people and we look at their lives and we wish we had their life. Right? But we don't realize that adversity is relative. It's not absolute. It's relative, right? What is adverse for one person may actually not be adverse for another person. So whilst you are looking at 10 different people, looking at their life, you will need to understand that there are 10 other people looking at you and wishing that they had your life. It's relative. You know about the old saying, right? I complained I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. It's relative. The fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he has a hadith. He says that in order for Allah to elevate His creation, because He loves His creation so much, in order for Allah to elevate His creation to a level He wishes them to be at, He places them in adversities and hardships, to a point that people around that person say, I wonder what this man has done. I wonder what kind of a sin this man has committed, that there is the wrath of Allah is on him and he is going through so much adversity and hardship. And the fifth Imam says, if these individuals were to understand what Allah actually has in store for him, then they would not feel sorry for him, they would be envious of him. And then the fifth Imam says, at the same time, Allah places sometimes the riches and the wealth, of this dunya at the feet of somebody. And the people around that person says, wonder what he has done to receive so much blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are envious of that person because of the blessings that he has received. But then the Imam says, if only they were to know what Allah has in store for that person, and that if they were to know that they would not be envious of him, they would be grateful that they are not him. Adversity, my friends, and struggles and hardship, it's to uncover our capacity. The challenge is to take the dunya and take the adversity and impress Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tell him, this is the way I'm going to take this adversity and how I will elevate myself. The adversity will not change. It is us who has to change. The adversity will be constant. I once went to a community and I met this, CEO of a major company who was in our community. And I won't mention the community because you probably know who I'm talking about. But he's a really rich man, very big CEO of a major company. And he asked me, he said, come to lunch with me. So I went to lunch with him, and he was telling me how he used to live in this third world country. And he said that the circumstances were such in this third world country that he had to leave. And he left this third world country and he came to the United States. And he said, when I first came here, I could not believe what I had to go through. I lost everything that I had. I had a good house, I had a good family, I had a good job. Everything was fine for me. And he says, when I came here, I just started to weep. I could not understand what was going on. And I could not get it. But he said, I hunkered down. I started to work. I didn't lose trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I knew that what He had done for me was for my own good. I had to accept this adversity and move on with it and not lose my track, not lose my focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, look, when I did that and I worked hard and I tackled all the issues the way I needed to tackle, today I am where I am because of that. And he says, when I reflect back, I realize that had I not gone through that, I would never have been where I am today. And of course, you may have tons of examples like that, don't you? And that's what we have to learn, my friends. Taking adversity and converting the adversity into something that is positive. Looking for the ease within the adversity. For on the night of Ashura, the women folk in the tent were preparing their children to go into the battlefield. Normally you will see that the mothers will go to all extent to save their children. Yet when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein on the night of Ashura, as he goes from one tent to another, he comes outside the tent of Rubab, and he hears Rabab talking to Ali al-Asghar. And Rubab is saying to Ali al-Asghar, he's saying, I have known that you will be sacrificed tomorrow, but I do not know how you will be sacrificed. I don't know whether the people will come into the tents and they will slaughter you into the tents. Imam al-Hussein moves forward. He stops outside the tent of Janab Zainab salamullahi alayha. He stops outside the tent of Zainab, and Janab Zainab is now talking to Aun and Muhammad. And she's saying to Aun and Muhammad, oh Aun, oh Muhammad, you know that you are the grandchildren of Ja'far al-Tayyar, and you are the grandchildren of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Oh Aun and Muhammad, when my Ali Akber has been sacrificed, do not embarrass me and do not hesitate to sacrifice yourself. Azadaran Hussein, Aun says to Janab Zainab, oh my mother, we promise you that we will not embarrass you and that you will be proud of us. And then Janab Zainab makes an amazing statement. She says to Aun and Muhammad, oh my children, promise me one thing, that when you are in the battlefield, if you are able to reach the river of Furat, you will not drink water from the river of Furat. You will remember the thirst of Ali al-Asghar, and you will remember the thirst of Sakina. Azadaran Hussein, on the day of Ashura, Abu al-Fadl Abbas sees these two children, Aun and Muhammad, and they were ready to go to the battlefield. But their heads were bowed down, their swords were in their hands, and Abu al-Fadl Abbas approaches them and he says to them, what's the matter? And Aun and Muhammad say to Abu al-Fadl Abbas, oh Uncle Abbas, when we go to our uncle Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he refuses to give us permission to go to the battlefield. But then when we go to our mother Janab Zainab, she says to us that I have already freed you. I have already given you permission. I don't want you to come back into the tent. We don't know what to do. Abul Fadl Abbas takes Aun and Muhammad with him. He comes to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and he says, "Oh Mawla, Zainab has told me that if you do not give permission to these two children, she will have to come out of the tent and she will have to come outside and into your tent to request you to give permission to them." When Abu Abdullah heard this, he said, "Oh Abul Fadl, as long as Hussein is alive, he will not bear Zainab to come out of the tent. I will give permission to Aun and Muhammad." The historians write that Aun and Muhammad start to go into the battlefield as they were suffering. Even though they were suffering from 3 days of hunger and thirst, they fight a valiant fight. The historians say that these children, they fight such a fight that they come all the way to the tent of Umar ibn Sa'd. When Umar ibn Sa'd sees them close to his tent, he says to his army folk, he says to them, "I want you now to stop the one-on-one battle with these children, for you do not understand. Their grandfather is Ali ibn Abi Talib, their grandfather is Jafar ibn Tayyar. I want you to surround them. I want you to start throwing arrows at them. I want you to start showering stones at them." Azadaro, they started to throw arrows and stones at these two children. The historians then write that there's a man who comes forward. He takes a spear and he strikes the spear into the chest of Aun. When Aun has the spear in his chest, he starts to move on his horse. He falls from the horse onto the ground. He says to Muhammad, "Oh Muhammad, if you are able to survive this battlefield, make sure you go and tell our mother Zainab that Aun did whatever he could to fight for his uncle Abu Abdullah." Another man comes forward. He strikes Muhammad. Muhammad now falls onto the battlefield. They call out to Imam al-Hussein, "Oh Abu Abdullah, help us. Oh our uncle, help us." Imam Hussein and Abul Fadl Abbas run into the battlefield of Karbala. Abul Fadl Abbas holds the body of Aun. Imam al-Hussein holds the body of Muhammad. Abul Fadl Abbas and Imam Hussein bring the body of these children back to the Khaymagah. As they bring these children's bodies back to the Khaymagah, Abu Abdullah says to Fizza, "Fizza, I don't see my sister Zainab. Go find out where my sister Zainab is." And Janab Fizza says, "Oh my master, as soon as Janab Zainab heard of the martyrdom of her two children, she is on the musalla and she is in the state of sajda." Azadaro, जब ये बच्चों की लाश खैमे में आई है तो एक मर्तबा बनु हाशिम की औरतें गिरिया करने लगी, मातम करने लगी। वाह औना वाह मुहम्मदा की आवाज बुलंद हुई। इमाम ने जब ये देखा, फिजा से कहा, "फिजा, मुझे ज़ैनब नजर नहीं आ रही है।" फिजा ने कहा, "आका, सानिए ज़हरा खैमे में सजदे की हालत में है।" अज़ादारो, जब ज़ैनब को ये खबर मिली है कि औन और मुहम्मद शहीद हो गए, एक मर्तबा ज़ैनब ने मुसल्ला बिछाया, सजदे की हालत में गई। एक मर्तबा कहा, "रब्बना तकब्बल मिन्ना", ए मेरे अल्लाह मेरी कुर्बानियों को कबूल फरमा। अज़ादारान हुसैन, शाम गरीबा के बाद हर बीबी लाश पर बैन कर रही थी, किसी न किसी लाश पे हर बीबी बैन कर रही थी। शाम गरीबा का वक्त आया है, कोई कहता है कि हाय मेरा बाबा, कोई एक लाश पे कहता है हाय मेरा बाबा, कोई कहता है हाय मेरा बेटा, या फिर कोई बीबी कहती है कि हाय मेरी गोद उजड़ गई। हमीद इब्ने मुस्लिम लिखता है कि मैंने देखा कि 2 छोटी लाशें हैं जिसके ऊपर कोई बैन करने वाला नहीं है, जिसका कोई वारिस नहीं है। मैं अली इब्न हुसैन के पास आया, मैंने कहा अली इब्न हुसैन से, अली इब्न حسین، 2 لاشیں ہیں، 2 لاشوں پہ کوئی بیان کرنے والا نہیں ہے، یہ کس کی لاشیں ہیں؟ ایک مرتبہ امام سجاد طرف گئے، کہتے ہیں امید تو نہیں جانتا یہ میری پھپھی کی جوڑی ہے، یہ اون اور محمد کی لاش ہے۔ زینب نے یہ وعدہ کیا تھا کہ اگر روؤں گی تو ابو الفضل عباس پہ روؤں گی، اگر روؤں گی تو شہزادے علی اکبر پہ روؤں گی، اگر روؤں گی تو ماجائے حسین پہ روؤں گی۔ لیکن عزاداران حسین، جب یہ لوٹا ہوا قافلہ مدینے واپس آیا ہے تو ایک مرتبہ زینب اپنے گھر میں آتی ہے۔ زینب نے اپنے گھر کے دروازے کو دخل باب کیا، دروازے کو کھٹکھٹایا، عبداللہ ابن جعفر طیار نے دروازہ کھولا، ایک مرتبہ زینب کو دیکھا۔ عبداللہ نے کہا بی بی تو کون ہے اور کیا چاہتی ہے؟ عبداللہ کا یہ کہنا تھا۔ زینب نے عبداللہ کو دیکھا، کہا عبداللہ زینب کو نہ پہچانا، زینب کو نہ پہچانا۔ عزادارو، عبداللہ نے کہا زینب نے کہا عبداللہ کیا تو نے زینب کو نہ پہچانا؟ اب زینب گھر کے اندر آتی ہے۔ عزادارو، مورخ لکھتے ہیں کہ جب جناب زینب گھر کے اندر آئی ہے، ایک کونے میں دیکھا کہ 2 چھوٹے چھوٹے مسلح ہیں، دوسری جگہ پہ دیکھا تو 2 چھوٹے چھوٹے بستر ہیں۔ بس زینب نے جب یہ دیکھا، آخر ماں کا دل ہے، جگر تڑپ گیا، زینب گھر کے زمین پہ بیٹھ گئی۔ ایک مرتبہ عبداللہ کو کہتی ہے، عبداللہ ہائے میرا اون، ہائے میرا محمد، واہ اونا واہ محمد۔ ماتم حسین